The subject of this video is a driver that, in my opinion, has had one of the most impressive turnarounds when it comes to attitude towards Formula 1 and racing altogether, and this driver is Kevin Magnussen. This approach can be seen as a consequence of his career path. He went from being one of the most aggressive and cutthroat drivers to one we're all cheering for because he's just a sweet guy. How did this happen? Without further ado, let's just jump into it. A young promise and son of Formula 1 driver Jan Magnussen, Kevin made his debut in F1 as a driver for the historic McLaren team. On his debut race at the Australian Grand Prix, along with his teammate Jenson Button, they got a double podium finish. He started on a high in a team that seemed to be able to lead the championship from the get-go. This soon turned to be smoke and mirrors though, as this was McLaren's last podium until the 2019 Brazilian Grand Prix. The rest of the season was just one disappointing race after another, but it hadn't much to do with the drivers. In the end, Jenson doubled him in points, but that's to be expected from a world champion in comparison to a rookie. While all of this was happening, both drivers found out by about Spa that Alonso was going to be joining the team, and thus one of the drivers was going to go by the end of the season. Kevin thought Jenson was going to retire. It made logical sense, so he didn't even prepare a plan B. Ron Dennis also favored the Dane, while the board of investors, who weren't happy with Dennis's leadership, decided to go the other way. Magnussen would be demoted to a reserve driver for 2015. He wasn't going to let this news bring him down, so he stayed with the team that season, hoping that Button's one-year extension would soon allow him to get back into the cockpit. On October 5th, 2015, Kevin turned 23 and got an email from Ron Dennis's assistant, who, instead of wishing him happy birthday, had informed him that there was no place for him at McLaren, and that they wanted to help him successfully embark on the next chapter of his racing career. With 19 race starts and 55 points to his name, Magnussen embarked on a search for a new team. He almost landed in Haas before they closed the deal with Grosjean and Gutierrez. After Pastor Maldonado's sponsor PDVSA failed to make payments to the Lotus Renault team on time and therefore was in breach of contract, he was fired. It was announced that Magnussen would fill that spot just 2 days later. Magnussen and rookie Palmer would fill the seats at the newly rebranded Banana team. Team boss Cyril Abiteboul told him that he was the future of the Renault team. By the start of the season, not only did he pass right in front of him without saying hi on track, but he straight up didn't recognize Magnussen. A combination of aggressive driving, bad luck, and reliability problems plagued the Danes' season. After having endured a puncture in Australia, a pit lane start in Bahrain, a tire failure in China, a penalty in Spain, crashes in Monaco, missing qualifying in Canada after crashing in FP3, starting from the pit lane in Baku, a gearbox failure in Silverstone, a crash at Spa, a power loss in Malaysia, and suspension damage in Abu Dhabi, he racked up 7 of the team's 8 points for 2016. He would sign with Haas for 2017. So far, he had been a low-key driver until he joined Haas. I think it's safe to assume his first few seasons gave him an unnecessarily harsh exterior, and that year he came out guns blazing. At the Hungarian Grand Prix with 9 laps to go, Nico Hülkenberg in his Renault attempted an overtake on the outside. Magnussen aggressively pushed him wide and into the grass. The stewards gave him a 5-second time penalty for the incident. Nevertheless, Nico confronted him after the race. He interrupted Magnussen as he was talking to the press, patted him on the shoulder and called him the most unsporting driver on the grid. Rather than apologizing, he went with a more childish answer. In one day, he turned into one of the most disliked drivers, both on and off the track. Later that season, he opened up about his situation among the other drivers, saying, "I don't have friends at all. They are not my friends. It would never work to have a friendship, so I don't make any effort to make friends." 2018 was a whole other beast, both when talking about the situation and Magnussen himself. That's the year where team radios with drivers complaining met the public eye. Pierre Gasly labeled him the most dangerous driver he had ever raced, after they made contact in Baku during a safety car restart. Magnussen moved to the left and hit the Toro Rosso as they fought for position at the high-speed final corner leading into the main straight. The FIA deemed Magnussen's move unpredictable and unnecessary and handed him a 10-second penalty. This was what Gasly had to say on the matter. "Kevin is the most dangerous guy I've ever raced with. He literally put me in the wall at 300 km an hour at the restart. Both my front wheels went in the air and broke my right mirror and bent my steering as well." Fernando Alonso was the next driver to public his displeasure at the British Grand Prix, and again during the Italian Grand Prix. "Magnussen tried to hit me 2 times in turn 1 and turn 3, and again in turn 6. In the end, neither incident granted a penalty, but it put a handful more drivers on the opposite side of the ropes." Leclerc was another driver to publicly complain about Magnussen. They had an incident back in Spain, and at the 2018 Japanese Grand Prix, Kevin was rear-ended by the Sauber of Leclerc, after the Dane suddenly moved to the right on the main straight, when Leclerc was attempting to pass at the start of the race. Kinda reminds me of something. In the end, the incident resulted in a puncture for Magnussen, who later retired with a damaged car. Leclerc had this to add: "I've only done a year in Formula 1, and for sure the driver which I had the most problems with is definitely Kevin. And I'm not the only one, as I've obviously spoken with other drivers, so I don't really understand why sometimes we aren't a bit more harsh with drivers like this." 2019 and 2020 saw the Haas cars pretty uncompetitive. Thus, the only noteworthy squabbles were those between Kevin and his teammate Romain Grosjean. The team was trying to figure out why the aero package wasn't working, but the drivers had different plans. They battled throughout the 2019 Spanish Grand Prix, and when they brought 2 different configurations to Silverstone to compare the times, they crashed into each other on lap 1. 2020 was another bad season for the team, who finished 9th and second to last in the standings. They both retired at the end of the season. Grosjean moved to IndyCar, and Magnussen tried finding another seat on the grid, to no avail. At the start of the 2022 season, when Russia invaded Ukraine, there suddenly was an opening at the Haas team, and the first person Günther Steiner called was Kevin Magnussen. After recently becoming a father, he didn't really miss the sport, saying, "I kinda forgot about Formula 1. It's not like there was this empty void or vacuum or anything. I was so filled up with happiness and joy from something new, and then I sort of forgot to look back." The opportunity was just too good though, so he talked to his wife Laura and they both agreed Kevin should be back in Formula 1. His outlook, however, changed. The whole paddock welcomed him with open arms, seeing as the hostility he expressed was seemingly gone, and the guy he was replacing could make Maldonado look like a teddy bear. This set of circumstances makes Kevin's second comeback different from every angle. Back then, Magnussen had a lot to prove, a career to save. His feelings now were very different. His cheery demeanor and lax attitude go right in hand with what he says. "I don't really carry all that expectation. I just love what I do, and I'm excited to see what the future will bring." His experience and a 2-year contract means he's an essential asset to the Haas team and his teammate Schumacher. Mick is driving against a competent driver for the first time this season, and guidance is just what he needed. When Magnussen left Formula 1, he never thought he could come back. He had closed a chapter in his life, but now that he is back, he can see how much he missed it, and he treasures his job and every race weekend like never before. "I feel I can drive more naturally, more free, in my mind, because my life has taken some weight off the meaning of Formula 1. So, this has been another video. Yes, 3 in a row. It's impressive, I know. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and as always, I will see you all in the next one.